Alright, guys, so I hope you all had a great Christmas, or whatever holiday you had. Mine was meh. But yeah, we're gonna talk about another comic that was sent to me by my good friend Chris. Chris, thank you once again for the comic. And we're going to be talking about Star Wars Yoda, the 10-issue miniseries from writers of Kevin Scott, Jody Houser, Mark Guggenheim, and artwork by a whole lot of people whose names I am not even going to attempt to butcher. Yeah. So basically, this was I don't know the full specifics, but I feel like this. I've heard somewhere that this was meant to be a new ongoing that was meant to be telling the lost tales of Yoda, but they just didn't have enough faith in it and just made it a 10-issue miniseries. Which, it's kind of a weird number, right? Like, if it's a miniseries, it's like 5, 6, 8, or 12 issues. It's never just like, it's weird to have like 10 issues, right? Anyway, so this comic basically is set during the between the events of New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. It took me a moment to realize. I'm very tired. But yeah, this is set between between the time when Obi-Wan is killed by Vader, and Yoda's basically, I don't know what to do now. Like, Yoda is chilling on Dagobah, and he's visited by the spirit of Obi-Wan, and the two kind of reminisce about stories of the past. Like, and each is 3-issue. It's a 10-issue story. There are three-part stories, and the final issue is kind of like is really cool. So it's basically like 4 different stories, really, and they're all set during different times of Yoda's life. The first being set during the High Republic, where Yoda goes and stays with a village that's being attacked by raiders, and he begins to learn their ways, as well as, try to find a peace between the two. That one's really fun. It's very Yoda. It's very much like Yoda doesn't need a lightsaber to solve an issue, and I feel like a lot of people forget that not everything needs to be solved with a lightsaber when it comes to Jedi, especially not Yoda. So I really liked it. And actually, the first story has the biggest core of the story. Like, it's kind of the first story arc is very much like the overarching of the rest of the story. So, yeah. The second one involves Yoda before the events of Episode 1. I believe it's supposed to be Episode 1. I think it is supposed to be set right before the events of Episode 1, because Dooku is still a Jedi Knight. So in this one, Dooku and Yoda are training a new group of younglings and Padawans, and one of them, a Wookiee Jedi, is struck with visions of his friend, a Tardoshan Jedi, who he believes she's going to turn to the dark side, and it leads to the Wookiee Jedi beginning a dark path. It's again another, like, this one does involve like the ways of the Jedi and the ways of the dark side. But it also kind of talks about like why Jedi kind of don't really perceive visions like most people do, because of what and they refer to Sifo Dyas and what happened to him with his visions and how the Jedi handle it. It also does kind of I also like seeing Yoda and Dooku hang out, and even though Dooku does kind of is the domino fall for what happens next, you can't blame Dooku. It's not like he's already like, ooh, the dark side's already possessing Dooku. It's more like, I didn't want to see the guy get, ostracized by the rest of his brothers and sisters in the Jedi Council like Sifo Dyas did. I just told him, hey, keep it to yourself for a bit, and maybe the Force will reveal itself later. And he even apologizes to Yoda in that regard. So it is cool. And the Dooku fan in me really appreciates. I always love some Dooku stuff. And finally, in a 3-parter that could have been easily written by Dave Filoni, of how goddamn ridiculous it is, and how, like, in your face it is with references. Yeah, you could have easily seen Dave Filoni do this 3-part series. This 3-part series is in the thick of the Clone Wars, in which Yoda and Anakin, which you rarely see them work together on missions together, Yoda and Anakin discovering that there's a new droid force being built on a distant planet, and the two of them have to go to stop it. This also leads to a fight between Grievous and Yoda, which is actually kind of cool. The artwork is very bright and vibrant. It's a really cool fight, even though Grievous is literally no match for Yoda. Again, it's something you would have seen Filoni create in either the cartoon or live action. In fact, I could be wrong, but I do think Yoda did fight Grievous, or rather just kick his ass, in the Dark Horse continuity. I want to say I've seen this before in the Dark Horse continuity, but I could be wrong. So that one's, it's just fun. It's not as like deep in storytelling, but it is really cool to see. The big thing of that story is Yoda and Anakin and how they play off of each other. It's a really cool characters study for the two. Then we finally have our final part, which cuts to the present time, in which Yoda is like reveals to Obi-Wan, "Look, I failed the galaxy. I couldn't defeat the Emperor, and now evil is won, and I got you killed by extension." And this leads to Yoda going to the cave that he warns Luke going into. The Dark Side Cave, and it's a really cool sequence where he battles ghosts of the past and remembers who he is. It's a great ender to everything. It's a great story. It's a great one and done like epilogue piece to this comic, which I thoroughly enjoyed. All in all, this is probably some of the most fun I've had with the Star Wars. And not to say the Star Wars comics have been bad. I've really just been keeping up with the events as well as the Vader books. The Vader books are really the only ones I consistently read. But this was a nice send from Chris. I would actually be very open to the idea of this getting an adaptation in the Star Wars cinematic universe. Even though, yes, this isn't these comics are in canon. I could easily see this is a 10-episode series on Disney Plus and have 3 different directors for each story arc. Filoni doing the Clone Wars one, because of course. I could see Deborah Chow doing the first story arc. And for the middle one, I would say Bryce Dallas Howard would be really good for the Bryce Dallas Howard one. For the second story arc. Damn it. I'm very tired, and I'm you can clearly see I've gone cuckoo. Anyway, so if you want to read like a cool comic involving one of the best Jedi out there, give this a look. It is a little pricey at $35, but I will say, if you are a fan of Star Wars and you haven't really been reading a lot of the Marvel Star Wars books, this is a nice little like self-contained series. Anyway, so there you go, guys. That's my review for Star Wars Yoda. Once again, I'd like to thank Chris for sending me this comic, as well as the others. Can't wait for the rest of the haul, brother. Other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.